Welcome to episode 7 at Green Rocks. This week we'll talk about change management in our two-party political system. The New Hampshire primary was this week, so I thought it was a good week to start talking about the elections and politics. The politicians had a great week this week, meaning they gave us a lot of things. And for the next 10 months, they're going to be giving us things, typically money or benefits, to try to earn our vote in the next election. We need to change their behavior over time so that they realize to gain our vote, they need to move towards a more balanced budget in addressing climate change instead of just giving us things to buy our votes. So let's learn what our politicians did this week. So now an update on events of the past week. The GDP was announced for the fourth quarter at 3.3%, making the GDP for the year about 2.5%. So it was a really solid year, weaker first half and a really strong second half of the year in 2023. President Biden also forgave an additional $5 billion of student loan debt in his quest to write off as much of that as he can before the election. There was a bipartisan tax relief bill passed, so the Congress actually worked together to give away $70 to $80 billion to Americans over the next 2 years. It's a two-part bill. It increases the child tax support credit, and it reinstitutes some of the business R&D incentives that were cut, part of the Trump tax cuts that expired. What's interesting about this is the Republicans wanted the child tax credit so they can run in the election that they're pro-family, trying to soften their beatings they've been taking about the Dobbs decision. And Democrats want to say we did something for business. So they're trying to round out their political platforms a little bit here and maybe win over a few voters by giving away $70 or $80 billion over the next couple of years. The Senate continues to work towards a border bill, and they're apparently getting close, but the Republican House has already said, we just don't think it's time to do that. Most likely because Trump said, don't sign a border deal unless you get 100% of what you want, which you're never going to get in politics. I've got an idea. How about we just don't pay Congress next year? They think that by not doing their job, Republicans, I'm not going to do my job. I'm going to run that Biden couldn't solve the border crisis. And so I can win. So by not doing my job, I can get more power. Just unbelievable thinking. On the other hand, the bill that the Senate's putting together would be over $100 billion. It would solve the border problem. It would give massive aid to Ukraine and Israel and more money to FEMA. So while I'd like to resolve the border situation and have less illegal immigration, we still need immigration. I'd prefer to have less illegal immigration. The political parties are taking actions based on electability and the upcoming election than they are about money. Our stock market's near record highs. I'm kind of confused why businesses need incentives right now. And we're at nearly full employment. Many people got significant raises during the COVID crisis or after the COVID crisis. Yes, inflation was high. But there's no real need to do expended tax credit and incentives for business. This is just a political maneuver. Now we'll talk about the change style indicator. We're going to ask Congress to change. This is one of my favorite tools from business. You take a 5 to 10 minute quiz, you answer a few questions. They're very simple. They're mostly how do you feel about things like this? And you end up being put on this scale of a conservator on the left, a pragmatist in the middle, and an originator on the right. I'll share a little bit more about those, but first, about 25% of people are conservers, about 25% are originators, and about 50% of people are pragmatists. Conservers prefer the known to the unknown. Said differently, I like the way I do it. I don't want to change. The pragmatist will explore change in an objective manner. If you tell me why I should change, and I believe why, and I see the benefits of change, I will go through the pain of change to make things better. But if it doesn't make things better, I don't want to change. Whereas the originators, they like change. I mean, they're most comfortable in a startup situation and fast-paced, changing situation. In business, great leadership teams consist of people with all change styles. And it's important to understand change styles aren't good or bad. They just are who we are. Businesses need to celebrate this diversity, and they make sure that an executive leadership team leading a large business has each of these change styles so that you can understand how the people working for you will adapt to the change or accept the changes you're trying to make and approach each type of person differently to get the business to buy into the change you want to drive. Next, I'm going to share how I think this is a pretty good model for politics in the United States right now. Here's some Gallup poll information. I'm not going to read each slide, but about pretty evenly split between Republican-leaning and Democrat-leaning. It's been the case since 1992. The highest number I ever saw was 50%. It's been leaning Democrat for the last 30 years. It just shifted over to lean a little Republican. You got liberals, moderates, and conservatives. And 53% of Democrats consider themselves liberal, and 73% of Republicans consider themselves conservatives. Independents in the middle are about half are moderate, 30% are conservative, and 20% are liberal. So now let's take our change style indicator and let's you could probably figure out what I'm going to do here, but let's just change it, and we'll put conserver. We'll change conserver on the right and originator on the left. I flipped this 180 degrees, but now let's call the conserver a conservative person, a Republican, and the people on the left, progressive. Blue, they're the Democrats. And in my dream scenario, there would become a viable third party. Perhaps they'd use the color white, so we'd have red, white, and blue. And they would be the people in the middle. And that's where, frankly, most of the United States is, in my opinion. Roughly 25% of the people said they were very progressive and 36% said they were very conservative. That left 36% in the middle. So this model maybe isn't perfectly right based on the latest Gallup poll. But the conservatives, the Republican Party, is way out near the 60, in between 30 and 60 number. They're way conservative today. And the Democratic Party is very progressive today. And those of us that sit in the middle have a hard time relating with either party on many issues. A third party would do a lot for us. It would work, in my opinion, a lot like what Joe Manchin worked in the Senate during the first 2 years of Biden's administration. A very small number of independents could tip the bills. For example, they could work with conservatives to cut spending. They could work with progressives to raise taxes. So where neither party would have the power, either the Republican or Democrats, would have the power to exercise their will, or perhaps the dream of having the majority where they can exercise their political will and grind the other party into the dust. This would force the parties to work together to get anything accomplished. The parallels to politics and business. In business, great leadership teams consist of people with all different change styles. Great countries have people of all political affiliations, and that variation and diversity of thinking helps the country continue to move forward at a reasonable pace without going wildly forward in a crazy pace or stagnating by not changing at all. Being a political party does not make one good or bad, just as change styles are not good or bad. It's amazing how sometimes you meet somebody new and you get along pretty well till they find out which party you're affiliated with, and then you don't hear from that person again. We need to celebrate our diversity of thought as well as our diversity of other things, religion, religious beliefs, our race, our heritage, and not try to defeat others who think differently than us, come from different backgrounds than us. That diversity is what makes America a great country. In a two-party system, each party only has to convince us to vote for them as opposed to the other side. Vote for red, vote for blue. I believe we need a third party. Maybe it's white, red, white, and blue. And maybe like Gandalf the White, they can ride to rescue and rescue our nation from a two-party system that's driving us to a position where we're going to be broke and we're not going to deal with climate change fast enough, and our children are going to pay for it in the future with significantly higher taxes, a significantly weaker economy, and fewer benefits from the government. I hope you have a safe and great week, and I look forward to talking to you next week.